Okay, so in yesterday's live stream, we discussed briefly the ongoing potential takeover at Everton Football Club here in the UK, and it got me thinking for a video idea this evening, and that is looking at the top 10 most valuable sports teams in the USA. Now, these are all approximate values. I'm going to use the Forbes listing, although Sportico I will make reference to their listing, which varies wildly compared to what Forbes has listed for valuations. Now, valuations does take into consideration assets. So, does a team own its stadium? Does a team obviously the contracts that players are on? Merchandise sales, ticket sales. It does take into consideration the revenue streams and outgoings of a team. It will also basically be like, if the team was put up for sale today, this is how much we expect a potential buyer to pay. So basically, when you want to get an antique valued before putting it up for sale, or when you have your house appraised before putting it on the market, this is what the market basically says your asset is worth. Now, revenue and valuation are two different things. Losses as well get brought into that, because there are, on the list that I got, the top 10 out of the top 20 are all American teams. There are some European sports teams that make the top 20 list. All three of those sports teams are football teams, or soccer teams to North Americans. Two are in Spain, one is in England, and they all have crippling debts, yet they are valued in the billions. Their debts are ridiculously high, near enough £1 billion, pounds or euros. So that's Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Manchester United, but they're valued far higher. So valuation is different from actual financial situation that the sports team finds itself in. I thought I'd just clear that up. So, there are a couple of ties for position here according to the Forbes list, and I'm using the Forbes list obviously for this video. So we're going to start at number 10, and that's the LA Lakers. They play in the NBA, of course. Forbes values them at approximately $5.6 billion US. That means they're actually tied with the Golden State Warriors, but for some reason on the list that I dug out off the Street website, the Golden State Warriors were actually above the Los Angeles Lakers. They're also valued at $5.6 billion, but the Sportico valuation does vary. Now, the Lakers and the Warriors both been very, very successful in the NBA. Now, Sportico has the Lakers valued at $6.44 billion, and the Golden State Warriors at $7.56 billion. So this is where there's wild differing opinions on valuation of sports teams. But as I said, going with Forbes. Now, in joint 7th, we have the Knicks and the Bears. So, the Knicks in the NBA are valued at $5.8 billion, so are the Chicago Bears by Forbes. Now, the Chicago Bears are in the NFL. Sportico has them valued less than the $5.8 billion with the Chicago Bears at around 5, just a nice round figure of $5 billion. The Knicks, however, are valued $1 billion more, pretty much, than what Forbes are listing them at, $6.58 billion. So again, that wide variable between Sportico's listing and what Forbes are listing. Now, Forbes are a little bit more reliable and a little bit more reputable than Sportico. They've been around longer. They've been evaluating businesses for longer. So we're already into the $5.8 billion range at this point. Equal fifth are the New York Yankees and the New York Giants. The Yankees are the only Major League Baseball team to make the list. The Giants are yet another are the second NFL team to make the list. All the others are now NFL teams. So the Giants and the Yankees listed by Forbes at $6 billion. Forbes have listed both the Giants and the Yankees in New York for valuation. So we're now in the $6 billion range according to Forbes. Sportico, again, that wide variable is there. The Giants, according to Sportico, are $5.73 billion, so not too far off that $6 billion listing. And the Yankees, according to Sportico, are $7.13 billion. These are ridiculous figures that Sportico are giving here that completely vary from Forbes. There's some wide variance there. But now it's dominated by the NFL. The NFL dominates this list. As I've said in many a video, the NFL is a license to print money. The Washington Commanders, formerly known as the Redskins, obviously, with Dan Snyder. Now, the only listing that is actually given is Forbes. Sportico do not give a listing on this one because the Washington Commanders are going through a sale process. Now, Dan Snyder is selling to Josh Harris, another businessman. The sale is approximately $6.05 billion US dollars. That's how much the team is being sold for. That is the latest figure I can get. Now, the sale was undergoing the process back in May. So this is the most recent valuation, is what the sale price is. Now, obviously, that the Washington brand has gone through a lot of issues in recent years. There's a bug there. It's going to annoy me. Yeah, the Washington brand has gone through a lot of issues. Obviously, there's been a lot of controversy. Yet the brand is still worth over $6 billion. Let that sink in. Third place is the LA Rams, 6.2 billion, listed by Forbes. Now, this is where Sportico in the top three, their valuations are actually below what Forbes gives. So the LA Rams are listed at 6.2 billion. The Sportico listed at 5.91 billion, which is interesting that now we're starting to get more realistic, I think, with Sportico and Forbes, where Sportico are giving a slightly conservative estimate of the valuation. Forbes are coming in at a number possibly a more aggressive, potentially, valuation. Although looking at it, I would trust Forbes maybe than Sportico, because Sportico are all over the place with their valuations. So that's at 6.2 billion. That's obviously an NFL team. Now, number two, very successful team in my lifetime, the New England Patriots. Again, NFL team. They won so many Super Bowls. Forbes listed them at 6.4 billion. This is the Kraft family owned the Patriots. Sportico listed them at 5.88 billion. But yeah, this team, you look at some of these teams, very successful. Other teams like the Commanders, not as successful. But the Patriots come in at 6.4 billion according to Forbes. Now, the most valuable sports team in the world. Let that sink in. These are the top 10 most valuable sports teams in the world. But the most valuable sports team in the world hasn't been successful for a very, very long time, but it's still worth $8 billion on valuation if they were sold tomorrow, is the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Sportico has them listed at 7.64 billion, but the Dallas Cowboys are the most valuable sports team in the world. Now, as I say, these are just valuations. If the Washington Commanders, which were an absolute disaster of a team, are officially worth 6.05 billion, and they were an absolute shambles of a team, the organisation, full of controversy. If a team that has stadium issues, scandal off the field, an owner who's basically been frozen out and been forced to sell is worth 6.5 billion. I actually think some of these estimates by Forbes, and to a certain extent Sportico, potentially are coming in on the conservative side. But Forbes is generally pretty reliable when evaluating someone's value or an assets, and also valuing company value as well, and in this case, sporting value. Now, as I said, these are the top 10 most valuable teams in the world. Out of the top 20, there are 3 European teams that make that list. That's Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Manchester United. As I said, this is a valuation of the asset of the company. That does take into a certain consideration revenue streams, merchandise sales, and obviously public image and reach. Man United, Barcelona, and Real Madrid have crippling debts, have a lot of debt. So while these teams are valued in the billions, and on Dallas Cowboys' case, nearly $10 billion. I mean, they're valued at 8, but it wouldn't take much to potentially make them a $10 billion team. Because I do believe the Forbes listing are really going low. Because if the Glazers at Man United were asking for £10 billion, which is more than what the Dallas Cowboys are worth, that just tells you that, asking price, and that's with the club saddled with their debt. That's interesting. But as again, valuation is not revenue loss and debt. It takes into consideration assets. So there we go. There's the 10 most valuable sports teams in the USA. As I've always said, the NFL is a license to print money, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the 10 teams that I have mentioned are NFL teams. 60% of the list is NFL. There's only 1 Major League Baseball team on there. There are no NHL teams that make the top 10. I don't think an NHL team made the top 20. And there's some very valuable teams that listed over $1 billion by Forbes in the NHL. I think there's 3 or 4 teams that are worth over $1 billion in the NHL. Not one of them makes the top 20 list, which is ridiculous. Only one Major League Baseball side makes the top 10, and that's the Yankees. No Major League Soccer franchises make the top 20, let alone the top 10. The NBA does make up a fair chunk of the list with 3 teams, but it is the NFL dominating this list. So as I say, the NFL is a license to print money. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will have some more content for you soon. And I thought it would be a good break from all the rugby union content we've been doing over the last couple of weeks with the Rugby World Cup. That can be a bit of a grind if you're just focusing on the one sport at the time. I like to keep things a little bit different, and I like sometimes doing these top 10 lists. So I might do the top 10 most valuable teams in Canada, top 10 most valuable sports teams in the UK, for example, go around Europe, maybe Australia, New Zealand, look at some other countries' top 10 most valuable team lists, because I think that may surprise some people how much teams are actually worth and what teams make the list. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments in the comment section below, and I will have some more content for you very, very soon.